Hello everyone, Patrick into today's video. Going to do GWV Sunday Round-Up. As always, we're going to have your usual eclectic mix of this and that for your Sunday afternoon viewing pleasure. So we're going to look at the current weather. It has turned really quite cool, wet and windy across the country today. A little bit of a taste of autumn perhaps in the atmosphere. It's not going to last very long, it's just a respite to the heat wave. Hot weather will be back towards the end of the week, and so we'll mainly dry conditions as well. So just a brief sort of interval of to let us catch our breath a little bit, and then we'll be off and running with more very warm weather later on in the coming week. Actually, we'll start warming up as early as tomorrow, but the high temperatures are going to return towards the end of the coming week and into next weekend. So I'll have more on that for you in today's video. We'll have a look at the sea surface temperature anomalies as well. We haven't got the solar tracker this week, having a week off from that. It will be back next week, and haven't done any autumn analogues either this week, so the autumn analogues will be back next week as well. We did release yesterday though the seasonal model roundup of the autumn 2018, getting together 12 long range models to see what they're all showing for the autumn. That is on the autumn updates page, and we're seeing a trend at the moment towards quite a warm autumn. Most of the models are warmer than average with their temperature anomalies, and also fairly dry with a lot of those models as well. One or two are quite wet, but most of them are actually trending warm and dry for the autumn. So kind of like trying to keep the pattern that we've had through the summer going into the autumn as well, which can happen. 1959 did that. So let's deal with today's wet weather though, first of all. So this is a radar picture from the Weather Outlook, and it's a very wet scene across the British Isles today. The far north of Scotland, central northern Scotland, mainly dry up there, and hasn't been much rain across the Northern Ireland either, but through northern England down to Wales, into Midlands, into East Anglia, South East England, we have got outbreaks of rain driven in by quite a strong sort of southwesterly wind as well. So it's wet and windy out there. We haven't seen anything like this probably since May, maybe even before that. So it's been a long time coming that we had a batch of wet and windy weather pushing across the country. This is the latest observation chart in terms of temperatures from xcweather.co.uk, and what a difference a couple of days makes. So looking at these charts on Thursday, Friday, and at this point in the day, it's kind of like looking at maximums up to 33, 34 degrees. Very, very different scene now, where we've got our maximum temperature at the moment. I'm doing this at 11:15 in the morning, is 19 degrees. So generally it is a very cool scene out there. Cranfield at the moment is at just 16 in the South Midlands, and we go up to Churchill Author, also at 16 degrees. That's when you can switch around to 61 Fahrenheit. It's even cooler than that though across northern England. Leek is at 14 degrees at there. Leeds and Bradford only at 14 degrees. Leeming at 14 degrees. And it's not much better actually down in the southwest either. So Cardingham in Cornwall at to 17 degrees there. And along the south coast, Southampton at just 15 degrees. Go to the far north Scotland. That's where the warmest temperatures are actually at the moment. Inverness is at 18, and Outnahara is at 17 degrees as well. But you get the idea that the temperatures have taken a real hammering in a couple of days. We've gone from sort of low to mid 30s Celsius to now struggling to get out of the teens Celsius. I think we will see the temperature this afternoon as it brightens up, going to around 20 or 21 degrees, but that's a little bit below par for the end of July. So actually today could be slightly cooler than average with those maximum temperatures. And where we've got the persistent rain in those areas, it will be substantially cooler than average with those temperatures staying into the teens Celsius. Although the rain should be clearing through during the course of the afternoon, or clearing up to Scotland anyway. It probably stays quite wet up there. This is a reanalysis composite for July 2018. This is provisional up to the 26th of July. This is this is kind of like from the 1st to the 26th, been a very anticyclonic month. Big area of high pressure, or above average heights, as we would describe it in a height anomaly, but it extrapolates back to high pressure. So a big area of high pressure over and to the east of the UK, and also extending out into the Atlantic as well. Excuse me, little reported is that this summer's actually been very, very cool up across Iceland and Greenland. So whilst most of Europe has been sort of roasting in these very hot conditions, especially northern and western Europe, up across Greenland and Iceland, they've actually had their coolest summer so far for like 100 years or something, and that's because you've got this deep trough of below average heights around Greenland and Iceland. Also a strong jet stream is going through up there as well, or perhaps not a strong jet stream, but certainly the jet stream has been through Greenland and Iceland on the northern side of this ridge of high pressure. So not everywhere has been having a baking hot summer this year. It certainly has been a cooler summer up there close to Greenland and Iceland as well. In terms of the summer reanalysis, so this is going from the 1st of June through to the 26th of July, so over the halfway point of the summer. Again, very similar story. You can see why Greenland and Iceland have had such a cool summer. That's where the jet stream has tended to be. But look at this huge ridge of high pressure that's been sitting almost stationary over top of the UK. So obviously that's the reason we have had such a hot summer so far, because that high pressure has been in there right over top of the UK, and it means we've been drawing up the air from sort of southern and central parts of Europe, hot air coming up out of the Med and getting ingrained within that large area of high pressure. So this has certainly been the most anticyclonic summer that we had for a very long time. Obviously we'll have to look back over the past summers, but that's a kind of reanalysis you would find with the best of the summers, like 1976, like 1995, like 1959, probably 1955. They would all have that near stationary area of high pressure or above average heights almost anchored over top of the UK. Bear in mind that is only from the 1st of June to the 26th of July. We've still got August to go, so by the end of the summer that might look rather different, but yeah, at the moment you can clearly see why it has been such a very hot summer. Let's have a look at the ocean sea surface temperature anomalies. So this is how the sea surface temperature anomalies were looking in the Pacific and Atlantic Ocean last week when we did Gas Weather Sunday Roundup last week. So we've got 3 areas of interest. We've got the ENSO region just there. We've got the Northern Pacific up here, and then we've got the Northern Atlantic over there. And of course the British Isles is just there, perched on the edge of Europe. So that's how things were looking last week. This is the very latest in terms of those sea surface temperature anomalies. So let's deal with the ENSO region first. Well, we did the ENSO update for July on Friday, released that. So the modelling is still trending towards a Modokia central base El Nino. But again, I'll just point out how cool these sea surface temperature anomalies are in the this part of the Pacific Ocean, so kind of like off the coast of Chile and going up towards Peru. The ENSO region is from Peru just there to Indonesia over here. We've got these very cool sea surface temperature anomalies here off the coast of Chile to the south of the equator, equatorial Pacific Ocean. And when we get those cold sea surface temperature anomalies there, it's not one of the things that you tend to associate with an El Nino. So I'm just wondering whether the modelling, we had this last year, the models at this point last year were very keen to go into an El Nino event, whether the model is just going over the top with the signal for an El Nino, whether it will actually verify. I've got a feeling the modelling will begin to back away from this in the next month or two, because those colder than average sea surface temperature anomalies there are quite substantially colder than average that we've got around, particularly off the coast of Chile, and it's not an area that you associate with an El Nino when it's colder than average there. You would expect that to be warmer than average with sea surface temperature anomalies there if we was going into an El Nino event. So let's just wait to see. It could well be that there's some sort of error going on within these long-range models that are pushing them towards wanting to produce previous El Nino events that don't actually verify. But we'll wait and see. I could be wrong on that, but I'm just a bit dubious. It is getting very late again for this El Nino to really start taking off. Normally you would expect to be seeing more significant warming of the equatorial Pacific by this point in the summer if we was going to go into a proper El Nino event. Of course, we might drift up a little bit above ENSO neutral, but whether we're going to go into a proper El Nino event, let's just wait and see. Northern Pacific, very little change there. Over in the Atlantic, no real change over there either, so it remains relatively cool with the sea surface temperature anomalies through the tropical part of the Atlantic Ocean. Then quite warm, in fact warming up through the central part of the Atlantic Ocean, North Atlantic Ocean. Then going up towards south of Greenland, it remains quite cool up there. Although that cold of an area, that's cold of an average area that's been to the south of Greenland, that is moderated. So that's how it looked last week. Quite deep blue colours there. This is the latest, and it does look as though it's beginning to warm up a little bit. We're beginning to lose those cold and average sea surface temperature anomalies to the south of Greenland. Very, very warm with the sea surface temperature anomalies around the UK, of course, and down to Bay of Biscay. They are shallow waters. I explain this in the videos every week. They're shallow waters. They're prone to rapid temperature changes, either warming or cooling with the weather. But also the reason with the seas around the UK, Ireland and down to Biscay have gone very warm is that we're having a hot summer. You can also see it over here in the Baltic Sea as well, for example, in the red categories there. So about around 5 Celsius or more warmer than average over in the Baltic Sea. And again, the reason that's the case is that they're shallow waters. They're responding to the hot summer that we're seeing across the northern parts of Europe. There's been a little bit of speculation over the past few weeks that the reason we're having this hot summer is because of the sea surface temperature anomalies in the North Atlantic, where it has been quite cold. Things are starting to warm up now, I think, in the northern part of the Atlantic. But a month or two back, we did have really quite cold sea surface temperature anomalies, especially in the northern part of the North Atlantic and also through the tropics as well. So there has been speculation that we had a similar sort of sea surface temperature anomaly profile to 1976 in the Atlantic, that long, hot summer that occurred in 1976. And now we're getting towards August. It's time to start thinking about how we might come to the end game for this summer, how this summer will end. There's two ways that can happen. It can happen either very dramatically, as it did in 1976, where at the end of August, severe thunderstorms broke out, and then it never stopped raining through the rest of the year, really. The government at the time appointed a minister for drought, and within a few days the heavens opened up, and it didn't stop raining in 1976. Once the summer broke, it carried on raining right way through to the end of the year. So that's one way this summer could go away. The other way is that it could just carry on and just fade very gradually in the end. That's kind of like the scenario we took in 1959, where the summer just carried on into the autumn, but slowly sort of faded away from high summer heat to kind of like a more moderate level of warmth, but very dry conditions through September, through most of the October 1959, where it wasn't until the final sort of week of October 1959 that summer ended. So I thought I'd just show you the sea surface temperature anomalies from 1976. This is how they were looking in July 1976. So you see we did have that cold area in the northern part of the Atlantic Ocean, and then warmer down here from like the southwest UK to off the coast of North Africa. So that's kind of similar, I suppose, and then quite cool again through the tropics, by the way, through the tropical Atlantic. So I suppose that's quite similar to the pattern that we've had through this summer. That's how things were looking with sea surface temperature anomalies in July. That's how August 1976 looks from a reanalysis perspective in terms of those sea surface temperature anomalies. The the sea surface temperature anomalies became a lot colder in the northern Atlantic through August 1976, and they warmed significantly off the UK, down off the coast of Biscay, going down towards North Africa, whilst the tropics remained quite cold. So actually we kept that sort of pattern of colder than average sea surface temperature anomalies in the northern Atlantic, then warmer around there, and then colder through that area, rather than an unusual pattern as the summer was beginning to wind down, although August 1976 was still a very hot and dry month, of course. Didn't break until the very end of August 1976, right at the bank holiday weekend. And then that's September 1976. So that's the very wet month of September 1976, which was the start of what was a very wet autumn. And you see what happened is that the colder than average sea surface temperature anomalies moved south to be sitting in the central part of the Atlantic. It is still a bit colder than average up around Greenland and Iceland, but it has obviously warmed up quite a lot up there, so it's warmer. It's not particularly warm, but it is warmer compared to what it was through the summer months. And we also lose that warmer than average area around the UK and going off the coast of Biscay and down to North Africa. That just recedes down to North Africa. So and also the tropics warm up a little bit as well in September 1976. So that's the kind of thing we're perhaps looking for if we want a wet autumn, if we want a wet end to the heat wave, to long hot summer. You would probably want it to start warming up a bit around Greenland and Iceland in terms of sea surface temperature, and move that colder area down be sitting in the central part of the Atlantic Ocean. Conversely, this is 1959, so this is July 1959. Again, you see quite a coldish looking Atlantic again in July 1959, particularly through the central and tropical Atlantic. It's not as cool though through the northern Atlantic Ocean as it is in 1976. And then that's how things are looking in September 1959. And of course, this is the hot September, or the very dry September. It was also a very warm month as well. The summer only sort of gradually waned through the autumn that year in 1959. I say it didn't really go to proper autumnal conditions until the final week of October 1959. That one, so September 1959 was very warm with the sea surface temperature anomalies to the west of the UK, and then cooler through the central part of the Atlantic, also quite cool through the tropics as well, and warmer off the coast of America, off the eastern seaboard of the States. So that looks rather different to the 76 path, where we go into a very wet autumn. But to be honest, I'm not sure there's a great deal in this idea that this summer has been caused by the sea surface temperature anomalies. I've showed you these charts a couple of weeks back when we did a Sunday Roundup, and yeah, there are similarities to the sea surface temperature anomalies in the Atlantic that we've had through this summer to 1976, but then I didn't think 1986 looked all that different either to the sea surface temperature anomalies this year and in 1976. And 1986 was a very wet summer, very cold and wet summer. So I'm not sure. There perhaps is some correlation between the sea surface temperature anomalies in the Atlantic and this summer, but I suspect there's more going on, I think, than just that. Particularly solar activity. We are around solar minimum now. This is the solar disk on our side of this today, and from solarham.net, it's completely spotless, no sunspots. Again, we have had over 100 days of spotless conditions on the solar disk this year, and you do tend to find that around solar minimums you get a hot summer. So 1995 was a solar minimum, or very close to solar minimum. That was very hot summer. 1976 was also a solar minimum, or around a solar minimum, and of course that was very hot summer as well. So maybe solar activity combined with sea surface temperature anomalies are at the root of this. Also, what's going on with the QBO? We're in a very strong easterly QBO aluvio this summer. So I suspect it's a combination of factors rather than one individual factor. And I don't think from the sea surface temperature anomalies we're going to be able to say how this summer is going to end, whether it will be one of those summers that goes out very dramatically and then we go into a very wet autumn, or whether actually it will be one of those summers that just slowly fades away through the autumn and essentially we keep summer-like conditions, particularly through September and possibly even into October. I don't think we can say from those sea surface temperature anomalies how this summer is going to end. Right, let's do some forecasting, and this is the GFS temperature and precipitation ensemble chart for the next couple of weeks. We're looking at London today, so the red line here is the 30-year upper air temperature average for London. A little bit cooler than average today with this wet and windy weather, and actually over the next sort of 2 or 3 days we're staying relatively cool, really, although the temperatures will pick up to some degree on Monday, Tuesday and Wednesday. It's not really until we get through to the second half of the week and then next weekend that we go into our next genuinely hot phase of weather. So by Friday I think we'll have the temperatures back to 30 degrees, 86 Fahrenheit. Then those temperatures will stay quite hot as we go through into weekend and the following week. Still some very hot outlier members showing up in the GFS ensembles for this second week of August, or the end of the first week into the second week of August. That one there is particularly alarming. That's going up very close to 25 degrees at 850 HPA around the 8th and the 9th of August, or around the 8th of August. If that came off, that would probably be enough to lift temperatures to 40 degrees, 104 Fahrenheit. But do bear in mind, it is very much on its own. It's a complete outlier. No other ensemble member is getting to that very extreme level of heat. But we have got some quite hot ensemble members. Several of them are going over 15 degrees at 850 HPA, which is enough to lift the temperature back to the kind of level of temperature we had a couple of days ago, low to mid 30s Celsius, most definitely. And then it just looks as though we keep things pretty warm, really, going up to the middle part of August as well. No sign of a change, a break in the hot weather once we get the next few days out of the way. As far as rainfall is concerned, so that's today's precipitation. After that, a lot of dry weather coming up, you have to say. There are a few rainfall spikes showing up there, but not many of them. Looks like once today's wet weather is out of the way, we've got lots of dry weather to come for the next 2 weeks. So broadly, the pattern of this summer is not changing through the first half of August. Temperature anomalies from the 28th of July through to the 5th of August are coming out warmer than average for the UK again, and down into many parts of Europe also coming out hotter than average there. Precipitation anomalies look drier than average through the southeastern part of the UK, a bit wetter than average for the northwest. Expect these charts to trend hotter and drier in the coming days. That's how the GFS is looking for Thursday, with this ridge building from the Azores going up to Scandinavia. It's been the pattern of the summer. We saw it on the reanalysis, but I started this video with, so the big ridge there from Scandinavia through the UK down to the Azores high in the Atlantic, leaving the low pressure and the jet stream locked in around Greenland and Iceland. So the very cool and wet summer that Greenland and Iceland has been experiencing, that continues into August, and the hot dry summer that much of northern Europe has been experiencing also continues. We go through to the end of the week and the weekend, and no change with the weather pattern. Really, high pressure remains in control. Yes, there could be some showers floating around this area of high pressure, particularly in the north and the east, but many places are going to have a dry weekend with lots of hot sunshine too. That's how we go into the start of next week. So high pressure is still in control of the weather pattern. There's the upper air temperatures. They are very warm with those upper air temperatures, but the hottest temperatures are across France, Spain and Portugal. Very hot temperatures there. And as I explained in the video yesterday, we have to be watching out for exactly where that extreme heat is going. It does get closer to us by Thursday, the 7th of August. We're pushing the 20 Celsius isotherm pretty much across the whole of France. So it's only on the other side of the channel by Tuesday 7th of August. If we get that 20 Celsius isotherm, that's what you look for to get to 100 Fahrenheit this time of year, basically. So it's only on the other side of the channel. This GFS run does not get that 20 Celsius isotherm into the UK, but it is a very close run thing. That's Wednesday the 28th of August. And by then, the 20 Celsius ice is just beginning to recede back a little bit. So it never gets to us on this particular GFS run. But we are still very warm anyway, with lots of dry weather under this ongoing sort of ridge of high pressure. And then we go through into the extended range of this GFS run, and it stays pretty dry and very warm for England and Wales, turns more unsettled up to the north. That's quite a big change, actually, that's showing up by the very end of the GFS run, Tuesday, the 14th of August, as we're dropping a trough into Scandinavia and pulling the jet stream down into Scandinavia as well. That's quite a change on the pattern that we've had through this summer. But it's right at the extended range. It's over 2 weeks away. ECWF looks like that. The ridge is building through the country on Thursday, giving us a very warm to hot end to the week. These warm, dry conditions continue into next weekend as well. So after this weekend's pause, by next weekend we're back to proper sort of barbecue weekend type conditions. That's how things are looking by the start of the following week. So this is Monday the 6th of August, still looking very warm. We've got a heat low, a thundery low is across France. That's being caused by the very high temperatures that are in over France. There's the upper air temperatures again. You see very hot conditions engulfing much of France by Monday the 6th of August. Not all that far away from us, so we do have to keep an eye on that very extreme heat that is over France at that point, and that's the reason we've got thunder threatening from that thundery low. And then we go to the end of the ECM run. It looks like it's turning more unsettled on Tuesday the 7th of August, possibly quite thundery then. But by Wednesday the 8th, actually, we're re-establishing the ridge once again, so still no break there up to day 10. And then finally the GM, and it looks like this. So again, we've got the ridge building through the country at the end of the week into next weekend. Will be plenty of warm, dry, hot conditions for the south at the end of the week into next weekend. That's Monday the 6th of August. Again, there's that thundery low that's developing across France, triggered by the very intense heat, but will be pushing up across France from Spain and North Africa. There's the upper air temperatures, so they're very hot for France. Look at that, got 20 Celsius isotherm heading into the English Channel. So extreme heat across France, and some of that extreme heat is getting perilously, dangerously close to southern and southeastern parts of the UK. It all turns very thundery very quickly though, and so that extreme heat by Tuesday the 7th is being pushed away from us as low pressure comes back in from off the Atlantic. And by day 10, it does actually look relatively unsettled, and there's the upper air temperatures. Again, we're shoving away that extreme heat that we have across France and just threatening the southern part of the UK. On Monday the 6th of August. By Wednesday the 8th, that's being pushed away into Central Europe as cooler air comes back in from the Atlantic. So we're still threatening this very extreme heat that looks like it's going to be engulfing France in around a week's time. We are still threatening to bring that into the south and southeast. We need to keep a very, very close eye on it. Finally, I'll just leave you with CFS V2. 500 millibar height anomaly, or 700 millibar height anomaly for August. So this is how it's looking, with above average heights again being centred very close to the UK. Below average heights are down here to our southwest. So it's the pattern of the summer continues through August. If CFS is right, bringing in these very warm to hot east to southeasterly winds. Temperature anomalies from CFS V2 are being forecast for August to be really very hot indeed, so almost off the scale in terms of the temperature anomaly. Only goes up to around 1.5 degrees above average, but it is going for a very hot August indeed, and also very dry August as well. So at the moment it doesn't look as though CFS wants to break us out of this. Certainly not before the first half of August anyway. The second half of August is a different kettle of fish. But the next couple of weeks going to be very warm, despite today's sort of wet and windy weather, a little taste of autumn. Once this is out of the way, we're going back very quickly into increasingly dry and warm conditions. Won't be until the end of the week, but it actually turns hot in the south, and then by next weekend and through to the following week, it's going to be a case of how hot will it get. We've established there will be very extreme heat across France. If you're watching this in France in a week or so's time, you are going to have dangerous heat by the look of these charts. Whether we get this extreme heat into the south of the UK for a day or two around sort of the 6th, 7th, 8th of August. We've got to wait and see. But we do need to keep a close eye on it. We have got very high temperatures, very hot air threatening in around a week's time. Right, that's brought you up to date with everything. Hope you found the Sunday Roundup interesting and informative. And that's all for now. Thanks for watching.